Welcome to chapter 9. Let's get straight into it. Course is starting. The course is starting. Boom. We're just knocking them right on out, aren't we? Getting through them. One at a time. But they're all important. And they're all built in order for a reason. Here's where we are. Trucking etiquette. Next we'll go to shop etiquette. And then how to deal with state police. So boom, chapter 9, trucking business etiquette. I think this is at Kinley, North Carolina. The Kinley Petro. I-95, big one. Boom. Trucking business etiquette. Let me just start by defining etiquette, which I did this little thing right here. Etiquette, right? Etiquette is the set of conventional rules of personal behavior in a polite society, usually in the form of an ethical code that outlines the expected and accepted social behaviors. That's the key thing, the expected and accepted social behaviors that are in accord with the conventions and norms observed by a society, social class, or social group. That's kind of way too much of a definition, but hopefully we get the gist of what etiquette is. It's what's accepted and accepted social behavior within social groups. And trucking culture in the trucking business is a society and a social group of its own. So, excuse me, the definition above sounds like a bunch of double talk, yeah. But in my explanation, etiquette is just doing right by yourself and others in the situations that you're in. It's kind of like having manners or whatever, but really it's respect. Etiquette and respect are like interchangeably kind of the same thing. So, if everybody had higher levels of etiquette, life would be so much smoother and more enjoyable, right? Because, but we live in the, real world where fear, jealousy, ego, envy, and anger still lives, right? Negative emotion and ignorance are the forces that keep etiquette alive. And by ignorance, we're just talking about like just not knowing, right? Negative emotion and not knowing are the forces that keep this negative etiquette alive. In this chapter, I will talk about what I think all truckers should know, at least, getting into this business when it comes to our trucking business etiquette, trucking etiquette, and etiquette in general. And so I say here that it is my opinion that great etiquette is an important building block to success. When I mention good etiquette or positive etiquette, I don't mean being soft or being a pushover. I actually mean the opposite, right? So I mean operating at such a higher level of awareness that you are attracting the right people. People who will help you succeed, and people who will actually enjoy, who you will enjoy to be around, and who enjoy to be around you, who enjoy to watch you win. And I also mean operating in such a fashion that pushes the culture of success and happiness forward, right? It's just etiquette, it's just watching each other win. It's like giving each other a hand when we can give each other a hand, and stay out of each other's ways and celebrate each other's wins. Do we go home and build with our family, and we all become a network of individual families and stuff, But I say this: you might be young, you may not be, but if you are young, but if you're having this level of etiquette, this level of self-respect and respect for others, the elders that are out here in our trucking that are already successful and already figured out how to do it and stuff, they will come out to help you, help you fix on your truck and all sorts of stuff. It's about this etiquette that we're getting into right now. So I'll tell you a secret. Successful people actually love to help people who are on the come up. At least this is what I noticed. Maybe it's not a secret. Maybe everybody already knows. I don't know. But the successful, people that are already successful, they love to actually, be there and help when people are on the come up, and when they genuinely see like something, or see themselves inside of another person, or they want to see another person win. And the reason is they are so happy and satisfied in their own success that they want other people to feel it too. They want other people to be able to relate to them, because they end up creating their own world, and they're like, hey, I want you to understand this world, and I want you to create a world of your own too. And to respect it for, and to respect them for their ability to be successful, right? And that's one of the things that, when somebody's successful, they're hanging around, with us, or we're on a come up or whatever and stuff like that. They also like hanging around because they know that we have the capacity to understand what it took for them to be successful, and that we respect that. Because successful people will not waste their time with, the disrespectful, the unappreciating, and the know-it-alls. So this is where this good positive etiquette, this is where this positive etiquette comes in. Sometimes the successful person just wants to be listened to, and for you to find their ways valuable. They want to feel appreciated. Some successful truckers just want to make sure also that you understand the code, like the trucker's code and the blood, sweat, and tears that it really takes to be a success in the first place. If these guys, deem you worthy, they will be a great help to you on your path to success. But remember, take everything with a grain of salt and come to your own conclusions based off all the information that you gather. And if somebody doesn't want to help, it's not the end of the day. It's all good. But because this whole program will help you in such a way that, you'll start to really turn the wheels on your own, where, you'll be figuring it out a lot on your own. But, it still would be nice, in the beginning, when you're figuring out how to, certain things to work on your truck, or getting the confidence up to do maintenance and things of this nature, to have guys stand in, or, people who've already done it, and say, hey, this is how you do it, or this is this, or these some things to look out for. Stuff like that. We'll still make it without their help, but, over the years, I really relied on people's help like that I just find along the way, or just good Samaritans, just positive people that pop up and help me in a time of need. And it's just like, sometimes it feels like it doesn't happen enough, but when I look back, I got a lot of it, and I was really thankful to these, to these individuals. So I kept that same etiquette and that same, courtesy and code going forward, and that's, what I'm showing in this program now. So especially if you're new into starting your business in trucking, you won't have to, go through like years and years, 3 to 5, 6, 7 years out here to figure it out. Like, it took me a while to kind of figure out how to get along with everybody, and a lot of people like give you the cold, they might want to give cold shoulders and stuff like that, and but a lot of times people are just tired. People just want to, go to sleep, or just relax and stuff. But there are ways and methods, and that's why we're having this discussion, right? So I've never been, right here in the green, I say I've never been the type to try to fit in, but I've always been the type to soak up the game, the information, and respect the successful elders. Ever since I can remember, I would always hang out with people that were older than me, and so if somebody was having a lifestyle that I wanted in any type of way or fashion, like, they were a great speaker, or they had this type of confidence, or I like the way that they were able to attract this type of lifestyle, then I would just sit there and listen, just be your student, and just pay attention. And that's what this life takes, to always be a student of some kind. Be a student, a student of life itself, the mechanics of life, as above, so below, inner, outer, higher, lower, hot, cold, all the different dualities of life, figuring it out so we can continue our journey, crack the code maybe, if that interests you. It's always interested me. Just keep on improving as I go. Yeah. I just leave that right there. I'll easily digress too much. I don't want to get into super deep life philosophical conversations right now. Oh, with enough work, eventually you will become a master and an elder in your own right. So, passing down the information in the game to the next deserving youth. It's a circle of life, and you want to make sure that you're in the right circle. I can't begin to tell you how many times that I've been helped out here, that I've been helped helped out here. 2 outs. But I also can't tell you how many times that I've helped and offered as well. You know what I mean? It's just this back and forth reciprocal deal. So with that being said, this is a perfect segue into our particular etiquette as it relates to trucking. So I guess what this is going to serve for us as an introduction. What we just discussed was like an introduction into etiquette, and why it's useful in our business. So let's get into the particulars now, okay? So for example, if you see someone with their hood up, with their with tools on the ground, like spread out, like they're working, or especially if they're having a hard time, maybe step over there and help them, or help him or her, or go give them a hand, or stand around and see, and at the very least ask them if they need a hand. If you're flatbed, if you're doing flatbed, then you can help somebody roll their tarps up, or help them tie down their load. If you're not in so much of a hurry, you can just kind of help them tie around. If they're trying to undo something with their tarp, you can help pull their tarp over, or maybe do a couple things if they're throwing their straps over, you get their straps, or whatever it is. Or if they're trying to figure out how to do it, you can help advise. If it's a mechanical issue and you got a lot of tools like I do, you could just go out and ask if they need a hand, or let them know, like, hey, I'm in this truck over here. If you need an extra tool or something that you don't have, just come give me a shout. I'll be up for a couple hours or whatever. I might have the tool that you need. Even if you're new to this and you don't know how to turn the wrenches, or as we call it, or whatever, how to do, how to mechanic and work on the trucks, still, this is even more important to get involved from time to time, when opportunities present themselves, and you feel like you're having time, or not going to make you late to your loads and stuff like that. But maybe this owner operator just needs someone to hold something while he tightens another part, or this, that, and the third. So be careful, of course. Not to walk into nothing crazy or whatever. But most of the time when we're at the truck stops, it's just us out there. But you still got to be mindful. But you just never know, right? When you'll make a huge difference in somebody's day, and that person might just be overwhelmed and down low on their morale, or down low on their luck and morale, and you just never know when you show up. You're smiling. And you're willing to, like, hey, like, what's going on? It could be just a big relief. Just like for morale, where this person's like, dang, I don't feel so alone out here, right? So, because right here in the blue, I say, if you're ever on the other side of this, like, if we were to put ourselves in this person's shoes, and say maybe you're the one that needs help, you'll know exactly what I mean. And I think you probably already do get the gist of of how nice it is to have someone pop up, and even if it's just for morale, when you're out there working on something, or you're up against a situation, you're trying to figure it out or whatever. Even if you don't know how to fix stuff yet, this is a perfect learning opportunity to get free first-hand experience on maintenance and how to be a mechanic, and to just watch and learn. Okay. Not only is this nice etiquette, good etiquette, but this is initiative, right? We've been talking about initiative earlier on, but this is what starts to separate you from the rest of the pack. Now you're going out here, you're like a satellite. You're going from place to place. You're just kind of probing around from time to time. You're just picking up information, and you're learning from people who are actually doing it. This guy's like changing his power steering pump in the parking lot. You're just like kind of checking him out, asking him if he needs a hand. So you're just kind of sticking around. Now you get to watch, like, oh, okay, so that's how he's doing that, and that's this and this. He's like, hey, you mind if you hold this? And now you're holding the pump in your hand. You're like, huh. Or he's like, hey, can you pass me that wrench over here? You're like, okay, so he's using this wrench. You're just always probing and picking up information. This is initiative, and it's what separates you more and more from the pack. Because now once you know. While the rest of the pack is watching their cell phone videos and hanging out on the social media posts, right? You might be out here actually just really learning the real life skills that'll help you be more competitive going forward in your future. Of course, there will be days and moments where you won't have the time, but if you do have the time, if you're on a 34-hour restart, something like that, check it out. And offer a hand. The old school guys love this, and will respect you so much for it, or potentially respect you for it. And like I said, at the end of the day, who really? There's no big deal either way. But it's nice that it's cool. Working with the synergy and because that's what they used to do back in the day. They used to help each other a lot. In the 80s and in the 90s and the 70s and even earlier, of course. But some of the guys that are still out here from the 90s and the 80s, they used to help each other a lot more. And so it kind of puts a smile on their face, and it makes them more inclined to want to see us as a human and see what we're up against, and if we need to know something, and they'll tighten us, tighten us up with some, tighten up some information, or show us how to do something or whatever. It's just nice to be able to have access to to real life experience and to people who've already done this, and people can help us get through stuff, right? So right here in the red, they will even take time to help you figure out your operation. Like when we talked about operation, how you want to set up your company, who do you want to lease to, your own authority, etc., etc. I hear from a lot of the old school guys that back in the day, everybody used to help each other like this. Oops, I just said all this, but then came the steering wheel holders, right? That's what they would say. And the electronic logs and CSA 2010 and etc. After the we got to hurry up and beat the E-log mentality set in, what happened? We got to hurry up and beat the E-clock. I don't have time for you. I got to beat the E-log. I got to beat the clock. I don't have time for you. I don't have time for you. I don't have time for you. So once that mentality started to set in, big fleets kept producing more, what they would call like lazy, overprivileged drivers, basically. Like just overprivileged drivers are just driving, just like, don't touch nothing on the truck, don't fix nothing, it's just like, don't stop and really, probably, throwing trash on the ground. Who knows? It's just like, just kind of like, there's really I guess, I started to see from the older truck driver's perspective too, that, how much of the difference is, and, how the camaraderie, and it's just, more selfish behavior where it's just like, to them, it's like, dang, kind of took the fun out of it, and stuff like that too. So, and, that's what, that's when we get more so like into empathy and sympathy, being able to see things from different perspectives, but, it allows us to learn. The golden days of the trucking camaraderie started to fade away. Next thing you know, after this, cycle after cycle. But that's where, that's where people like us, people like me, people like you, that's where we come in. We get to right those wrongs. We get to come back together and show and prove that we have etiquette and, self-respect and respect for each other too. And, that we're all down to make this, money happen together. And if each one teach one. If I have something, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna let you. More than likely, I'll let you use it or whatever. Or if you know how to do something, you should show me how to do it. And we can prove this etiquette to every new wave of truckers, both young and old, because it makes it so much more pleasurable out here when we move as a unit like this. And that's what a lot of us owner operators do out here with our own authority. We help each other out here. A couple years ago, I was by Allentown in Pennsylvania at the Truckerz Travel Plaza. It was late in winter, so it was almost springtime. And so I figured it was almost done with the snow, but I caught some unexpected snow coming out of Dover. And after delivering my great paying load that I had to Pottstown, PA, it was a cool little load. It was like, I don't know, 200 or 300 miles, but it was like $1,800. I liked it. And I noticed that my trailer brake lights were stuck on. My brake lights for my trailer, they were just on, like they were like extra illuminated as if I was pressing the brakes. Right. So this was urgent, right? I couldn't haul any more loads until I fixed this. I can't go everywhere with my brake lights stuck on. That's really because it is out of service, because your brake lights, yeah. So I had to figure out, what the deal is. I had to fix it before I could continue. And I'm not fixing to, go over to the Volvo dealership or anything like that, to have someone find out like an electricity issue like that. There's some reason why those are getting constant power, and I should be able to find it. So I go to the Truckerz Plaza and park, And after a while of troubleshooting, I decide that it's my 7-way plug underneath my trailer, because on my flatbed trailer has 2 different hookups where I can hook up in the front like normal, or underneath if I have like the airlines from the back of my truck hookup. And so I think that 7-way plug, and I realized, it had, this extra road salt in it, and I was looking at it, and I saw that salt was acting as a conductor between one of my 12-volt hot wires and the supply for my brake line. And so I go to this place called Hale Truck Parts. There's a lot of them in the area up there, and I get the plug, and I start to hook it up myself. Right, pretty simple. And I just got to put it all back the same way, and I put my tool bag on my brake pedal, right, so I can so I can weigh it down to see if to check my brake lights, make sure they're coming back on and back off and stuff like that, right. Everything looked good, but I forgot that my brake pedal was still down, and I continued to install the 7-way plug, and I ended up making a big spark when I let 2 of the wires touch. Boom. So I go back in my cab, and man, I messed up, right? So none of my dashboard lights would come on. My E-log wouldn't get its power. And so I tried new relays for my ignition, new fuses, and it seemed like nothing would get it right. I'm like, dang, I know I popped something. So long story short, I kind of gave up for a little while, and I looked at the across the parking lot, and there were 2 new to me men outside working on the truck. So I figured, I was like, hey, I wasn't going to be able to fix my truck yet, so I might as well see if they needed a hand. And I was feeling pretty down and out at that point. I wasn't down and out yet, but I think I had already walked. I had walked over a couple miles to a Volvo dealership, and I was really thinking I was going to get it through those ignition relays and stuff like that. But so I was like, might as well see if they needed a hand. And his name was Charlie and Carlos, father and son. Charlie is his dad, Carlos is his son. And so Carlos is mainly, he's the owner of the truck. Well, they actually did need a tool or 2 from me. They were tightening some spring leaves, and come to find out, Charlie, his father, the father it was a licensed mechanic and knew mechanics very well, right? So afterwards, he came over to help me. He is then, he's like, so what do you have going on? I told him what I had going on and what I already did, and he come to find out, just that fast, he found exactly what my issue was. He said, did you check every fuse? And I was like, no, I didn't check every fuse, but I already changed all the important fuses, with relays and everything dealing with ignition of what's not working. And he was like, no, you must check every fuse with a test light, on both sides. And sure enough, he was right. I blew this like fuse or 2 that according to my, wiring diagram, had nothing to do, I thought, with ignition, but that's what it was. Put them fuses in. I was looking at him. I was like, man, dang, man. You figured, yeah, I had a habit of that over the years sometimes, which would be like just like kind of going to the more complicated things to fix things instead of starting with the smaller things. So I've gotten better and better over the years at starting with the smaller things first, then go looking at the larger things. So once we replaced that fuse, my whole dashboard came back to life. And I learned an important lesson, which is check every fuse, right? And I was back ready for business. That night, I repaid Charlie and Carlos with some beers. They got this little dive bar place across the street at Truckerz. It's like $8 or $10 for a whole pitcher of just like some basic Yingling beer and stuff like that. So I was like, let's meet back up tonight or something like that, and let me at least buy y'all a couple beers or something, because I was almost getting like to the point where I was really scratching my head on that one. I was like, man, dang, I might have to take it in, have somebody figure out what to do. But yeah, so repay through some beers and conversation at the bar, and still refused to let me pay. And isn't that nice? Isn't that something? So imagine that. I thought I was stuck. And because of, this etiquette that we're talking about, I just went over there to do some basic stuff that I would normally already do and see if they needed a hand or a tool or something, right? And what I get out of return? in return. Talk about instant karma, right? And this is just one example of many, of course, and it's just one I had on mind at the time of this writing. And so this happened to so much I probably can't even remember all the times that I've got or gave help. But it's just the true trucker way. You see? So, and that's what it's all about, and that's what this chapter is all about. Is just understanding that too, that we do have resources within, within each other, and it's okay to call upon each other, but it comes with the rules of etiquette and respect. Even if it seems like no one is helping you, just keep fighting a good fight, and helping others and doing what you can to make things easy, make things better, and being a hand out here with each other. Even if it's holding the door open for somebody, or having a little conversation with somebody, or putting a little hope into somebody, or helping them tighten up their operation if you have more experience than they do, and stuff like that. If your intentions are pure, your help will come. It will start to come, more and more. All right, so here's another particular. Be considerate to others' time and space. Right, this should go without saying, but it's a very big rule of our etiquette of what we do out here. We got to be considerate of others' time and space, especially considering we're parking right in between people's trucks every day. We've got to respect each other's space because we live in close quarters with each other. Don't leave your truck at the fuel pump for too long if the place is busy. Right? Just keep it moving for other people can get into fuel so they can get on with their day. We never know how busy the next man's day is and stuff like that. Don't drive aggressive and cut off trucks in the truck stops if they have the right of way. That should go without being said, right? Just not driving too fast in the truck stops and cut people off like, I'm going to beat you to the exit and all this stuff. It's like, yeah. Come on. That's a quick way to get, boxed right out. Slow down in the truck stop, of course, and just watch for people. There's real people walking around. We just take our time and get in and out of the truck stops and back up and whatever we need to do. Be careful of people's trucks when you're backing up, of course. Even if we got to get out a couple more times, we just got to do what we can to, to respect other people's trucks, especially other owner-operators, Take your time. If you're blocking someone in somewhere, like say if you're at a shipper or receiver and you're kind of blocking somebody in and you see them kind of trying to get out or whatever, just, inch up some and just let the person out. It's no big deal, right? That's what we do. The more we, the more, this is the type of energy that you put out, this is the type of energy that you begin to see more and more of that, return to you, right? And it's the old golden rule: do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you, right? Trucking culture is actually, once you really get to look at it, it's really cool for the most part. It's special and it's simple. The guys in the trucking culture are actually really cool. Most of them are wise, skilled, and just decent people, right? Good people, positive people. Some just become, jerks, quote unquote, or whatever over time just because of the laziness, and the self-centeredness that has entered our industry and, just that really. And other factors, and it could be personal stuff at home too and all that, but if you want to be first, you have to earn it out here, and there's a lot of guys out here that have been doing this way longer than all of us, and they've really earned their place out here. So we just, that's what we give space and give them their respect, right? That's trucking culture and etiquette, and that's what we do. This is what we do. Yes, in different trains of thought and in different environments, one is supposed to take first place by aggression or by force. But this is not true in trucking. If you behave, if you carry yourself in this way of self-entitlement, you will quickly get boxed out by the same people who would have helped you and rooted for your victory. I know it may be hard to believe, but positive people really do exist, and not just this dog eat dog culture that we are led to accept. And remember this, that you must be the change that you want to see in the world. It gets difficult to remember this. It's easier said than done. But when we take a deep breath and we, when we realize, hey, like, yeah, if we really want the world, to be better, or we want things to be more positive, or we want to be more successful, we have to be that. We have to first change ourselves. We have to be that change, and show it through through our actions and through our smiles and through how we carry ourselves and how we treat each other. If you wish this world to be a better place, then we got to start making it. You got to start making it better yourself, right? They said that it's age old. Been saying that for years, right? Old expression, but even if it doesn't seem to pay off, or that nobody's looking, or watching, or paying attention, doesn't matter. Just what we got to do is take the initiative to be the one that has enthusiasm, right? Enthusiasm is contagious. Just keep it moving. Next, trucking business and etiquette, right? Gotta have style, gotta have class. Gotta have some style and class to yourself, right? Do your best to represent the pride of trucking. We're already treated as outcasts. People already look down at us like we don't have skills and we don't know, what to do, what we're doing in society and all that. Even though that's all soon changing and been changing in a positive way. But do your best to represent the pride of trucking, of what we really do out here, right? Have a clean dashboard. Do what you can to be, be courteous with shippers and receivers. Not a suck up, of course. We don't have to be suck ups, but just to be like, be professional. They want to, spout off back and forth with just, man, maybe not just say nothing. Just be like, oh, okay. Just stand our ground in a likable way. Like, all right, that's the world you got to go back to, but not to go tick for tat, if we can help it. If you must stand your ground, do so in a likable way, right? We do what we can to stand our ground and be like, look, this is not right. We got to keep it moving. We got to get these unloaded. But but with a stern, like, not calling somebody out of their name, or like you're this or you're that, or you can't do that, or like, nah, just maybe even with a smile on your face if you can. Just be like, hey, look, we need to get this loaded. You got to keep it moving. You've already taken 2 hours, okay? And they're like, whoa, did he just want to fight me? But we didn't call anybody out their name. We really didn't rub anybody the wrong way. It's just being honest. So and that's part of class, style. Don't litter. And this is just a list of just rules. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah. If you do, you don't. If you don't, you don't. You don't. You do, you do. But this is what it is. So as part of having class, it's not littering. Not leaving pee jugs full of pee, especially for us men. Don't be stinking, right? I'm just reading what I wrote. I'm just reading it. Right, we don't want to be out here stinking, all right? That's serious though. Take well care of ourselves. Represent ourselves well. Shower when you need to, of course. Help be a problem solver when it comes to loading freight or dealing with situations, right? Instead of just sitting around waiting to, like, especially for us flatbed, if they're trying to figure out how to load something and they don't know what to do. The more and more experience you have, the more and more you're qualified to be like to get involved and help them solve the problem. And we're like, okay, let's load it like this. We're gonna put it here and do this, because you know what to do. Or in situations at truck stops, problem solvers, helping people back in, or doing stuff like that. It's part of the style and class, being a problem solver. Respect the elder truck drivers, when they're attempting to give you advice, even if you don't, if you're younger right now, if you're not wanting to hear it sometimes when these guys, just do what you can to kind of, just let them, have their soapbox and talk for a little bit. But, of course, keep it moving if you need to. If someone is getting old and disabled, maybe help them throw their tarps on their flatbed or something like that. Help cut them a little break somewhere. Help other people pick stuff up. If they need to pick stuff up off the ground or whatever. Flatbedders, if we're, unloading something here and there. If you see them struggling with their forks, on the forklift. Like there, yeah, I'm saying it right here. Boom. If a forklift driver needs his fork slid over or something, you see him struggling, just get out and just help him move the forks or something. This is how we make a better reputation and image for us truck drivers, and we casually get more and more respect over time, and get actually more money, and get, more respect becomes more money. And developing a great reputation and providing a professional service. So, so let's have then it's having a positive attitude. If you're not in a positive mind frame, do what you can not to take it out on others. As part of having class and responsibility, class and pride. Meditate more often. and develop your inner peace. Do what you can to find your inner peace, and once you get there, just hold on to it and just remember where it's at all times. Don't do what you can not to respond emotionally to people or situations. When somebody's like, "Hey, you need to do this," you're like, "Whoa, who are you talking to like that?" Da, da, da. You throw back with the same emotion. That's not style in class. Then we start. That's fighting fire with fire, and usually doesn't accomplish much. Do what you can to be patient with others. People are only going to understand what they understand. So sometimes we got to be careful that we're not like, getting emotional or like us, like going too far off on somebody because they don't understand something the way we understand it. We got to do our best to make it make sense in a way that's understandable to them, and not take it out on them, so to speak. That's part of style in class. It's like learning how to be a fighter and a lover at the same time, right? Not everyone deserves your response or energy too now, right? So this is a positive thing to know. This is in green. Not everybody deserves your response or your energy when it comes to this just low-level respect. That's all it is. So, got to remember, you're out here, you're making a killing. You're probably making 4 or 5 times more money than they are per week, even with other truck drivers and stuff. As you get your operation better and better and lower your overhead and, really, get tight with this stuff. But it's like, so you're making more money. You probably got a way better home life to come home to. So it's just remembering those things and just chilling, just taking a moment while they get their little low-level disrespect across. So it's like a lot of times it doesn't even require a response. Sometimes when I get low-level disrespect, I just look at somebody like, really, and I just be like, okay, and just look at them right back center into the eye. And then when this person doesn't get that emotional response that they want to get back, and they'll be like, their fire just gets put out, and they're like, oh, well, all right, well, actually, it's okay, yeah, you can stay right there or whatever, or I'll just let you know when it's time to back up or something like that, because a lot of people jump out just real saucy, just real like, really just like wanting to pop off stuff, and it's like, hey man, you need to calm down, whatever you got going on in your life, your home life and stuff has nothing to do with me, because right now you're being disrespectful. So, when we do that through smiling more often, right? And just stay out of that, negativity, right? Be aware of it when it comes through, but, don't let it hit you, and just stay out of it when it comes through. Just jump, be like, whoa now, negativity, you need to cool out. So smile more often and be enthusiastic, right? Give plenty of space before you pass somebody on the interstate. That's another nice one. Before you pass somebody on the interstate, do what you can to not block their view of sight. So especially if you're hauling a van trailer or a reefer, think about it. As soon as you pass somebody, they can't really see now. They don't have that line of sight. They don't have vision anymore down the road. So now they got to either like trust that whatever you're doing is right, or they got to fall back some. Now you just inconvenience somebody. So we want to do what we can not to inconvenience others as far as like that goes. As far as that flow of traffic, it's okay to drive, slower. Some people say that's an inconvenience, but that's the way the road is built. Right lane, slow traffic, left lane, fast traffic. If you want to go faster, you're going to left lane to pass. But when it comes to like passing somebody, we shouldn't be never anywhere close to hitting their truck, of course, or getting close to their bumper. But we just give them plenty of room. Now, if we got people behind us that are like, mad dogging and wanting to get through, we'll get over quickly for them. But still be mindful of that person and do what you can not to block their view of sight. And if you do have to get over sooner, then do what you can to kind of like pull over to the right more so they can still see in front of them as you get up on your speed. That's nice. That's style. That's etiquette. So another thing is to get a CB radio, for sure. Definitely nice to have a CB radio. I leave mine on pretty much at all times. Yeah. And this is just I'm concentrating or I'm doing something else, or it's a conversation I'm really just not interested in, and two people are just so into it, and I'm just like, all right, no, cut it down. So when you get a CB radio, you can thank people when they accommodate for you, because at the end of the day, nobody has to accommodate anything for us. So when somebody accommodates for you, like they move over for you to let you in, they just exercised great etiquette. You see what I'm saying? They just let you in, cool like that. So a lot of times I get on the radio and somebody didn't have to do that. I'll be like, just call out the truck or the trucking company, or like, appreciate that, Peterbilt. Just taking my time getting on. I would have waited. And it's like, oh no, it's no problem, something like that. So boom. So now you just acknowledge his accommodation, and so now you just let him know, just reassure to him that he's doing the right thing too. And see, and this is how things progressively get better. Starts with each one of us. But this is what we do. This is what a lot of us do anyways. So, let people know on the radio if they have a brake light out, or like a turn signal, or something weird, or if you see their load or a strap or something looks like it's about to fall off the back of the trailer, accommodate, to give them that convenience, that style, that's etiquette. Just let them know. Get on the radio and say, hey, flatbed going eastbound with the tractor on it. You got a copy? Yeah, what's going on? Maybe they don't have radio on it. They don't, you gave an honest attempt. But if they do, they'll thank you for it, because you might have just saved their hide on something, and that's how we help each other. That's style. That's etiquette. I'm gonna keep saying that. That's style. That's etiquette. So, next particular, right? Please do not be the one who's always complaining. That this person just is a drag and brings down the whole truck stop, and or wherever. The shipper receiver always wanting to complain about something, and wanting to get other people to start complaining with them, and boom. It's just please don't be this guy. It's just this person takes away and just makes things ugly and inconvenient. So I'll just read to say this. I promise you, complaining almost never fixes anything, and it really gets on the nerves of successful people. Exactly. Because successful people are not thinking about all that complaining. Complaining is like the nails on a chalkboard sound. It is just very annoying. Successful people who find solutions. We don't sit here and just complain without working on a solution or something. If we do complain, it's only for a short moment, and it's just like we're just venting or something. You'll hear these guys, at the truck stops, right? Just complaining. Cheap freight, complaining about their dispatchers, owner-operators or company drivers. Dispatchers, my dispatcher this, my dispatcher did that. I go home when I want to, folks don't know what they're doing and all this stuff, right? Complaining that there's no money in the trucking business instead of doing something about it. Instead of grouping together on some positive stuff and like trading information or whatever. But these are the guys I just suggest, as far as probably who you should stay clear of in a mentality type of way. I'm not saying that, to shun another human or whatever just because of whatever, but as far as a mentality way, probably should just steer clear of that, not spend too much time around it, because, this negative mentality and pessimistic attitude, it can be contagious, and it can get into you, and it can be infectious. And, the infectious, go around spreading it with others, and probably a wise thing to stay clear. This is what I suggest. Maybe have little conversations, keep it moving, drop a little tidbit if you want to give them a little direction to go into or whatever, but I'd probably just keep it moving. I wouldn't go tick for tat for like 30 minutes or an hour and a half talking about which is the better way to do it, and who's making more money and all this stuff or whatever. Especially if it becomes into just like a versus match and all that stuff, and when that person's not really listening to what you're saying anyways. So at that point, you're not really learning from them, and they're not tuned into you. So just keep it moving, because many people do not really understand the power that their thoughts and their emotion have. Thoughts and emotions, what you're thinking and how you feel, just there's so much power in that. It could steer you one way towards success, or steer you one way towards not success. When you have an idea and attach a negative emotion to it, you really start to create that environment for yourself. As we really got into the, in chapter 2, when we're talking about these laws of attraction and mentality. There are some pretty simple but unchangeable universal laws. And another good book to really look at these universal laws is the Kabbalion. When you get into like hermetic science, going back to Hermes, which a lot of they say, it appears to be that a lot of modern religion is, built off these, hermetic principles. So something to look into. Hermes, the book called the Kabbalion, very old, ancient stuff that's been just passed down, more so by word of mouth. So, but the thing is, we better get to, you got to get to know these universal laws, sooner than later, so that you don't end up being on the wrong side of them. So you could use the high versus low instead of being, using low to fight the high and stuff like that. I won't spend too much more time on this chapter, but do know what we just did. All right, that great etiquette is valuable in many ways and is a resource to your success. Make a true effort as you continue to grow to pay attention to trucking culture. Especially the old guys out here, the old cats. Trucking has its unspoken rules that don't really change. Just be a good, decent, genuine person with self-respect and enthusiasm. And ultimately, people will reflect your energy and show you support as well. It really takes a winner mentality to be successful in anything in life. And trucking is no exception. Move as if you've already won the fight. Move as if you're already successful. Right? Successful people do not let the little things get to them. They have bigger fish to fry in comparison to getting into emotional disagreements with people in the truck stops and shippers and receivers. Keep your mind on your goal. Feel as if you've already accomplished it. Know what you want. Increase your desire and accept nothing less than what you want. Be happy. Be enthusiastic. Be likable. Be highly favored. Be highly respected. Be highly loved and be highly appreciated. The more you respect yourself and have integrity, the more others will have respect for you by default. It's just how it goes. The more you love yourself, the more others will show and give you love as well. This is universal law. Try to cheat the universe if you want. The universe made me and also made this amazing possibility of a reality that we live in. The all, making the universe. I chose to be on nature's, in this amazing possibility of reality that we live in, right? So yeah, I chose to be on this side of the universe, nature, God, and all that a long time ago, right? Every part of life has its own ecosystem and its own set of rules, we notice. I choose to operate on a proven system that allows me to decide my own time in my own space, while interfacing with the world, of course. What I mean is, take your time, slow down, and talk to yourself in a well manner. Positive self-talk. Talk to you, have these positive type of conversation with yourself. Focus on what it is that you want and where you want to be. The more you focus on it, the more it is that you can do it. The more it is that you can visualize it, and the more you become it. The key is to pay attention to your surroundings. Find the leaders and learn from them. Eventually you become a leader yourself, and you get to decide how you want to lead. This is your chance to improve society. But before you can improve something, you must first understand it. So, in this case, understand your industry. Understand trucking. This is what one thing that we got to do first in this trucking business of what we're doing is understand our industry, the style and the class of it, the etiquette. Understand yourself and understand the universal laws of time and space. Take initiative and don't work against etiquette. Working against the code of trucking is a great way to delay your success. Continue to learn from the success and failures of others and learn to respect the industry that you're making thousands of dollars a week from, right? You got to give respect in order to get respect. Even just respect into, our business, into our industry, and respect into life, and, God, and breathing, and all these different things. We give that respect and receive that respect back. This is true in trucking too. But do make sure you learn to respect yourself as well, and first and foremost, have this respect for yourself. By implementing the above codes, you will be much more natural in discovering how this all works. Step by step, brick by brick, have faith in yourself and pay attention. It pays to pay attention. And it's pretty easy. So, we're wrapping it up. That's wrapping it up. We just wrapped up shop etiquette. We just got through another one, chapter 9. Hopefully you see how this is important too. All right, trucking etiquette, how we carry ourselves out here and how we move, has a very impact on our longevity, our ability to run this marathon, and ultimately our success and our pleasurability and how we enjoy. We have a well code. We do what we can to help others when we can. We take our time around truck stops. We give each other space. We be very careful and mindful of other people's property when we're backing in and around. We become problem solvers for shippers and receivers, and with our fellow truck drivers. We stand around, we offer our help, we ask questions, when we watch people do repair jobs, we get involved, maybe show people how to do repair jobs and share tools with each other. We don't get into low-level disrespectful arguments with shippers and receivers and even brokers. We let that be water under the bridge. This is what we do. We're professionals, and we have style and class. Step by step, brick by brick, this is how we win together. So, in the next chapter, we're going to go on to another part, an important part of etiquette, which is the repair shops. Shop etiquette. And shop etiquette is almost even more important than just basic trucking etiquette when it comes to business, because this directly involves money, in the mathematics of money and how much money we're spending in our overhead. Okay, you will see each chapter in my book, in this program, gets a little more advanced in detail and more detailed and higher and a higher level of the trade secrets as we go. You're doing well. If you've just been really just like taking it in and listening, then you're doing well so far. You're still reading, you're still listening, you're still sticking with. So this next chapter will assist you into, this boss mentality that we need to have when it comes to shops, and how we talk to shops, the shop foremans, the mechanics themselves, the TAs, the Petros, the Loves, all these places, how we talk to the people who are at the front desk, and how we run our show. In many cases, shops are not our friends, or in the beginning they will not be our friends until we earn their respect, or maybe it'll never be a respect thing. So we just keep it moving and fix it ourselves, or work with somebody else, and that's what we're going to learn. They sit around some of these shops, right? A lot of these shops, especially dealerships, we're going to get into it, is they sit around like vultures, waiting to prey, to feast and eat, right, on the weak. You have to know your truck. All right, and I got a whole chapter on maintenance, chapter 12, I believe it is. That's when we're really going to get into it, because it's another one of the most important things is you have to know your truck. You have to know mechanics to a certain level, and that certain level that you have to know, I'm going to be getting you most of the way there, so don't worry about that. Then the rest will be experience and getting out there and doing it and watching YouTube videos and watching other people do it and helping, which is part of why we just discussed this in etiquette, okay? You have to know mechanics to a certain level, because if they sense you do not know what you're doing, they will attempt to run up a crazy big bill on you, crazy big bills on you. These places will just run circles right around you if you give them the opportunity. So, we don't want that being the case. I will show you how to get ahead of this unfortunate reality. Okay? Let's continue into chapter 10, which will mark a third of the way through this whole program. We are doing this. This is all real. This is all from the ground up. I'm Andrew's Method. Make sure to check out andrewsmethod.com too. I got some cool t-shirts and other things going if you want to continue to support this. This is all real. There's a lot of meat on this bone. So we're going to keep it moving into chapter 10. I'll see you there. Shop Etiquette.